you actually, that was real? You actually did help?
Yes, that was all real. I delivered 7 lambs.
Premiere of your movie was last night. What was it like watching it with an audience?
Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. It was really nerve-wracking to see it with an audience. We'd had our cast and crew about 2 weeks before that, which was lovely because everyone really wanted it to be great. But obviously when you take it to a festival, anything kind of goes. So it's so personal to so many people who worked on it in front of the camera and behind, and of course for Amy Liptrot, who it's about. So I'm really glad it went well.
And this movie's based on Amy's memoir. How did the project land on your radar? Did you find the book first? Did you get the movie script?
Yes, we found the book first. The rights had already been bought by Sarah Brocklehurst, who we ended up co-producing the film with. And it was introduced to me through Jack Loudon, who also produced it, who's a very proud Scotsman and had been to the Orkney Islands a couple of years before that and had completely fallen in love with the place and the people and the culture. And when he goes to a new place, he tends to read a novel or something from that place. And that's when he discovered the OUTRUN. And so we were in lockdown a few years ago, and he said, this is the book you need to read because this is the role you need to play. And so I instantly read it and just really fell in love with Amy's writing and how she captured the struggle of addiction, regardless of whether it's something you're going through or something that you're watching someone you love go through, and the pain of that, but also the sort of beauty that can come out of healing from it, I suppose.
And this is a more modern role than we're used to seeing you in. Is your prep different when you are taking on a project that's set a little more modern day?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think it is from an exterior point of view, or from a sort of external point of view, should I say. When you're doing something that's like set in the Second World War, you're more likely to do some kind of in-depth research into the time period, and you kind of need to pay attention to, I don't know, just etiquette, I suppose, social etiquette, how people held themselves, how they communicated, how intimate they were with one another physically, things like that. Whereas when it's modern, of course, you don't have to think about any of that stuff at all. So there's a real freedom with that, you know, because you can just focus on the performance.
And your character has a Scottish accent. So what are some of Yeah, what I was wondering, what are some of the nuances or differences from your Irish accent?
Well, so I've done a fully Scottish accent before, which I would love to redo because I live half of my time up in Scotland, so now. So I'm more sort of in tune with the accent and the different sounds depending on where you go. So I wish I could do that again, but I guess what's the difference? I would say in general Irish people are probably a bit louder than Scots. I think their accent the Irish accent is a lot more round and it's very, very muscular. Scottish is a little bit like, they keep everything a bit flatter, I'd say. Yeah, I'd say that's the main difference.
And what was it like to develop such a personal story with the person who the story is about?
Very intimidating, really, and I don't know, you just feel like there's an awful lot of responsibility on your shoulders, especially with a story like this, which is not only her life, but it's a very intense, traumatic part of her life. And we delve into her relationships with her family, with her friends, some of whom she lost along the way. So it was a very vulnerable place for Amy to put herself in initially, and so for me to protect that while also still authentically, showcasing her life, what she went through. It's difficult to find that balance, I guess, initially. But you know, then it sort of starts to become yours as well, and it's in your bones after a while.
And what was it like in the flashback sequences where we see her struggle with alcoholism, capturing that on screen and maybe approaching it with sensitivity, but also playing someone who is intoxicated?
Yeah, it was really difficult. Yeah, there were times where I found it very upsetting. It was hard to shake it off. It was hard for the crew, but it was also quite cathartic. So.
And any challenges or anything you channeled before those sequences when you were having to play drunk?
Music, physicality, work that I'd done beforehand on how she was going to move, how sort of centered she was in a certain scene where she was drunk, or how woozy she was. You know, I'd sort of make that decision beforehand just so I had something to hold on to. So yeah.
And music feels like a big part of the overall structure of the story. What was your interpretation of how music helped enhance the movie?
What was my interpretation of it? I mean, music for me is always important, and I feel like Amy is a real music lover. You know, we didn't include this in the character of Rona, but Amy was like a music journalist as well, and she spent a lot of time in like the underground music scene in London. So that's a real sort of passion of hers. It is of mine as well. So I think it was always going to sort of play a vital role in the movie. We were still sort of figuring out what the sound was while we were shooting. So there were certain scenes where I just really needed my own personal music to be played, like things that really sort of resonated with me. But yeah, music's always important to me. So.
Any songs in particular you remember going back to?
I mean, this might be surprising, but Renaissance had just come out, so it was actually a lot of Renaissance, which I think is a perfect album.
Love that. There are a lot of nature facts in the movie. Were there any little tidbits that stuck out to you that you remembered?
Yeah, what was it? Like, we have 50% of the same DNA as jellyfish, or 60% or something. That's kind of wild. My fascination with seals just went to a whole new level while I was making the OUTRUN. Yeah, nature played a big role in the movie.
And your character also has a lot of these cathartic dance sequences. I was wondering, what was that like for you to film?
It was great. Really fun. I love dancing. You know, I feel like I have a real freedom whenever I have the excuse of a camera being there and I have to give all of myself over to it. So I'm very uninhibited when I get to dance in a scene, even if I look ridiculous. So yeah.
And your character goes through a lot of hair color changes. Were you actually dyeing your hair? Were you wearing wigs?
No, we didn't have the money for wigs. We had Kat Morgan, who did the hair and makeup, found this like clay. I'll have to figure out what the brand is. It was quite amazing. So we didn't spray paint it or anything. It was this clay that she would put on my hair every morning. Because sometimes we were doing so many scenes in a day. We'd go from like a blue hair scene to an orange hair scene to a blue tip scene. And you could just wash it right out and change it to a different color. So it was quite amazing.
Did you have a favorite color that you felt like captured your energy the most?
Captured me as Saoirse? I actually loved the orange. I really loved the orange. I just felt it was so vibrant and fun, and that's when she's sort of at her most alive. So yeah, I love that.
Do you think that it would be more terrifying in real life to help a lamb give birth like you do in this movie, or jump out of a moving car like your character does in Lady Bird?
Well, the only thing I've done for real is deliver a lamb. And that was very terrifying because I didn't know if like I was gonna kill the lamb when I was trying to pull them out, or they've got a lot of like goo in their airwaves when they come out. So you've got to get hay and stick it up their nose so they sneeze it out, and you've got to rub them really aggressively to just like get the air moving through them. And if you don't do that, they'll die. So I think that's scarier.
That was real? You actually did help?
Yes, that was all real. I delivered 7 lambs. Yeah.
Where were you finding the lambs?
What do you mean?
Like the timing had to work out, right, for the lambs to be giving birth when you were ready to shoot.
Yeah. So lambing season takes place at a certain time every year. So in Scotland, on the mainland, it's earlier. It's, I think, usually like February or March. But in Orkney, because it's further north, it's later, so it's around April. So we knew it was going to happen in April. And I had just finished a movie in Australia, and I flew straight to Orkney, and we would get to the farm for about 4:30 a.m. We did it for about 3 or 4 days, and I don't know how explicit you want me to get, but you would know which ewes were pregnant, like the farmers would know, and there was some stuff going on, you know, at the back that would make it very clear that they were, basically when their waters would break, it was very obvious. So you knew then that ewe was probably going to go into labour in the next like hour. So you'd have to pinpoint the ewe in a pen of like maybe 40 sheep and tackle it, which is really difficult because they're really strong and they don't want to be caught. And then you've got to, you know, it's everything that I do in the movie. It's all one take. So I'll put my leg on the ewe and make sure that she's calm and stick your hand up her and pull her lamb out. That's what I did 7 times.
Was there any hesitation, or were you like, yes, I'm ready to do this on camera?
I was totally up for doing it, but I was really scared. I'd never done anything like that before. I grew up in the country, but like I did not grow up on a farm. And to see kids that have, it's like there's just such a nonchalantness to it, and you know, it's just what they do every day. Some of the lambs live, some of them die, you know, it's life. So it was very humbling to start our movie like that, and that was the first thing we shot. So
wow,
yeah, it's crazy.
Well, speaking of Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig has said recently that she would love to revisit your character in a sequel. I don't know if that's something you talked about with her, but does that interest you? What do you think that Lady Bird would be doing now?
I mean, she's based on Greta, so like, does she make Barbie? I don't know. I remember we did discuss it when we were making the film, that we'd love to revisit it. I've heard that she started talking about that. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'll do everything with her for as long as she'll have me.
And Timothée Chalamet said that you and he were supposed to have cameos in the Barbie movie. And so did you ever figure out what maybe you guys would have been playing if your schedules worked out?
I don't know what he was going to be, but I was definitely going to be a weird Barbie. I don't know how to take that, you know. I mean, I would have been with Kate McKinnon, so that would have been nice. But yeah, I worked with Jacqueline Duran, the costume designer, after they'd made it. And I was like, who was I going to be anyway? Because I had a scene, but didn't ever get to do it. And it wasn't in the movie what I was going to do. And she was like, oh, obviously you were going to be a really weird Barbie, Saoirse. So.
What was the scene that didn't end up making the movie?
I can't even remember now, but it was weird.
What would the intricacies of your weird Barbie be if you were to have to bring that to life?
I think I'd be like the very strange girl that talked to herself and always had her pet dog with her all the time, and she just talked to the dog and wouldn't like look at anyone. I think that's probably what I'd be.
What kind of dog?
Probably my kind of dog, which is a petite basset Griffon Vendéen. She's a hound.
Love that.
Yeah, she's not as pretentious as she sounds.
The last question I have for you is our studio is sponsored by Audible, and so we're asking everybody, just with the way that the mediums of storytelling are changing, what do you see as the future of audio entertainment?
You know what the thing is with audio entertainment? Like I I love radio more than anything else. And I actually don't think it will ever drastically change, and that's what I really love about audio. There's only so far you can go with it. I don't know how else it can change, and I really love that. Like I've only started getting into audiobooks recently, but I've been listening to all the Harry Potters on super long drives that I do, and you know, when I'm driving into work in the morning, I'll put a book on, and that's been really great. So that's actually quite a new thing for me. But yeah, what I like about it is there's a purity to audio entertainment that we've always like been able to rely on, you know.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It was so great to have you here.
Thanks.